And Keith, I have to ask you, I'm also I do HSN, and I bought your guitar.
When Keith Urban began making subtle changes, most fans didn't think twice. Artists evolve, it's part of the journey. But over time, those changes became harder to ignore. A longtime band quietly vanished. On-stage moments started raising eyebrows. And as whispers about his relationship with Nicole Kidman grew louder, what once seemed routine began to feel like something deeper. Now, fans are asking a bigger question: what's really going on behind the scenes? A childhood built on struggle. Long before the awards and sold-out arenas, Keith Urban's life looked nothing like it does today. Born in New Zealand in 1967, he moved to Australia as a toddler, eventually growing up in Brisbane in modest conditions. His family ran a small convenience store and lived in cramped quarters behind it. Life wasn't just tight, it was tough. At times, the family depended on the kindness of others just to get by. Keith later described his upbringing as one that built a relentless drive in him. Every success he achieved would come from years of grinding, one gig at a time. But financial hardship wasn't the only challenge. His father struggled with alcoholism, casting a long shadow over their home. Keith would later describe his childhood as emotionally distant, with strict discipline that sometimes crossed into something harsher. For years, he carried the belief that he deserved it, a mindset that stayed with him well into adulthood. And yet, in the middle of that tension, there was one thing that connected them: music. The spark that changed everything. Keith's father loved country music, and that passion became their shared language. At just 4 years old, Keith picked up a ukulele. By 7, he was playing guitar. And at 5, a moment happened that would shape his entire future. Seeing Johnny Cash perform live didn't just inspire him, it gave him a vision. For Keith, the dream didn't feel distant. It felt possible. By 9, he was performing on Australian television. But even early success came with harsh criticism. After one performance, a judge dismissed country music entirely and criticized Keith's singing. Instead of breaking him, it fueled him. He held on to one word the judge used: intrinsically. When his mother explained it meant he was a natural, that was all he needed to hear. Loss, fire, and resilience. At just 10 years old, Keith faced another life-altering moment. His family home burned down completely. Everything was gone. But what stayed with him wasn't just the loss, it was what came after. Neighbors showed up with food, clothes, and support. That sense of community left a lasting impression on him, showing that even in the darkest moments, people could come together. By his teenage years, music wasn't just a passion, it was his path. At 15, he made a bold decision: he left school to pursue music full-time. While most would hesitate, his mother supported him. That choice changed everything. The long road to recognition. Keith threw himself into the Brisbane music scene, playing bars and clubs, performing whatever the crowd wanted. Rock, pop, country, he did it all. In 1991, he released his debut album in Australia. It gained attention locally, and soon he found himself opening for Slim Dusty, one of the biggest names in Australian country music. That experience changed his perspective. Where Keith saw the end of a tour as relief, Slim saw it as fewer chances to connect with fans. That moment shifted how Keith viewed performing. It wasn't just a job, it was a privilege. Still, he knew Australia wasn't the final destination. In 1992, he moved to Nashville, the heart of country music. But success didn't come easy. Failure, addiction, and rock bottom. After years of struggling, Keith formed a band called The Ranch. It felt like his big break, but it didn't last. The band struggled, touring in difficult conditions and playing small crowds before eventually falling apart. Behind the scenes, things were unraveling. The pressure, insecurity, and isolation led Keith down a darker path. He was introduced to drugs, and what started casually turned into a serious addiction. Life became chaotic. Nights blurred into mornings. Touring was followed by heavy substance use. He was trapped in a cycle that felt impossible to escape. By the late 90s, he had hit rock bottom. In 1998, he made a decision that would save his life. He checked into rehab. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. That experience changed how he saw everything. He began to understand that life wasn't about perfection, it was about moving in the right direction, even imperfectly. The breakthrough. In 1999, Keith released his American debut album, and this time, everything changed. Songs like You're Everything and But for the Grace of God didn't just perform well, they took off. His album went platinum, and suddenly, he wasn't just trying to break through. He had arrived. By 2001, he was winning major awards, including the CMA Horizon Award. Over the years, he would go on to win multiple Grammys and establish himself as one of country music's biggest stars. But while his career was rising, his personal life was about to take a dramatic turn. Love, fear, and a new beginning. In 2005, Keith met Nicole Kidman at a gala in Los Angeles. Nicole felt the connection immediately. Keith didn't. Not because he wasn't interested, but because he was. He later admitted he was too intimidated to call her, even though he had her number for months. Eventually, he did. And when he did, things moved quickly. In 2006, they married in Sydney. It looked like the beginning of something strong. But just 4 months later, everything was tested. A marriage under pressure. Keith relapsed and entered rehab again, this time after an intervention led by Nicole. It nearly destroyed their marriage before it truly began. Rumors of infidelity added more pressure, and from the outside, it looked like everything might fall apart. But instead, they fought through it. Over time, their relationship stabilized. They built a family, welcoming 2 daughters and creating a life that, from the outside, seemed solid. But even strong relationships face strain. Cracks beneath the surface. Over the years, small details began to hint at deeper challenges. Keith spoke about needing space at times, even retreating to quiet places to reset. Nicole acknowledged the intensity of their home life, describing it as full of energy but sometimes overwhelming. By 2018, rumors of tension began surfacing. Work schedules kept them apart more often. Public appearances alone became more frequent. And while they always presented a united front, the pressure was undeniable. The breaking point. By 2025, reports suggested the marriage had reached its limit. After nearly 2 decades together, Keith and Nicole were said to be living increasingly separate lives. What looked sudden to the public had reportedly been building for years. The news of their split triggered a wave of speculation. Rumors of new relationships surfaced. On-stage moments, like Keith changing lyrics during performances, only fueled the conversation. One moment involving guitarist Maggie Ball went viral, sparking intense debate online. Despite public denials, the narrative had taken hold. A new chapter, or something else? At the same time, Keith made another surprising move. He parted ways with key members of his longtime band, including close collaborator Jerry Flowers. For fans, it felt abrupt. Keith described it as following an inner voice, but others weren't so sure. Some began to question whether these decisions were part of a larger personal shift. By early 2026, the divorce was finalized. Custody arrangements leaned heavily toward Nicole, largely due to Keith's demanding tour schedule. While the details raised eyebrows, those close to the situation suggested it came down to stability for their children. So, what's really going on? From the outside, it's easy to speculate. A major breakup. A new direction in his career. Changes in his inner circle. On-stage moments that don't quite feel the same. Individually, each piece might seem normal. Together, they tell a more complicated story. Keith Urban has always been someone shaped by struggle, resilience, and constant evolution. From a difficult childhood to addiction, from failure to global success, change has always been part of who he is. The question now isn't whether he's changing. It's why. If you found this story intriguing and want more deep dives into the lives behind the headlines, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss the next story.